What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Fuel for Growth podcast with myself, Niles, and Leonard. And today we're joined by a very special guest, Michael Rossi. Michael, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. I'm glad to be on the show. Leonard asked me to come on a little while ago. I'm glad we can make it happen. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I'm also create content. I have a podcast YouTube for the Tennessee Titans called the Titan Upload Network. So I'm stoked to get into what we're going to be talking about. All these topics they hit very home for me, so and close to my heart. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It's honestly it's a pleasure to have you. So for you guys at home today, we're going to be covering a little bit about addiction. Because we noticed that a common pitfall these days is a lot of people get addicted to things, and we're talking from drugs, money, women, fast cars, slow horses, all these types of things. So, Michael's got a bit of a story actually. Michael, what's kind of your story with addiction yourself? Because I heard that you were battling it in the past, right?
Yeah, I battled it really hard for probably a good part of from I'm 40 now, so it probably started when I was about 25, up till well, 35. I'll have 5 years on February 9th. 5 years sober and clean, whatever you want to call it. But so yeah, I battled it really hard, man. I mean, I've had legal issues, the gamut. Like I've been through a lot of stuff with legal issues and things like that, from mainly like theft charges and stuff like that, from what drugs had I don't like to say cause me to do, because I did them ultimately. It was my decision what I did, but the drugs definitely played a huge part in a lot of my actions, from everything, finances, legal issues, women, every part. The drugs kind of were just the symptom, you know what I mean? Like, um, what the other part of it was all the stuff that I had become because of it. Like all these other obsessive things that I had, and my lack of drive or determination to do the things that I could have done during those years.
So it's kind of it's sounding like you don't want to blame the drug because but it was the things that you was willing to do to go get those drugs or to satisfy that addiction. I think that's what a lot of people do, is that they realize, and I think that's good for you, because a lot of people will try to blame like whatever it was that had their addiction. In your case, the drugs. Well, it was the drugs that made you do it. And it was like, nah, it wasn't. It was the addiction of what you was willing to do to have that said addiction. For people, it might be the drugs, might be the alcohol, might be women, gambling, fast cars, whatever it might be. It's not that the fact that those things caused you to do it. It shows you that you didn't have willpower in those moments, that you was willing to do that for that. So what caused you to have that situation and those addictions? And I'm glad for you, man. 5 years, congratulations, bro. Keep standing strong, keep going on with that. So I'm glad you was able to see what was causing that addiction and then change and adapt and fix that and be sober now for a better life, man.
It's kind of all about that behavioral recognition, right? Realizing that, as you said, you yourself kind of looking inward instead of expressing everything on the external. A lot of people don't realize that it's the internal that needs to be fixed to fix the problem, and they look for the fix externally, and that obviously will never be found, really.
Right. And I work in treatment. That's what I've been doing the past almost 3 years now, and I work in admissions, and I get people in the treatment, people who are at their worst, at their lowest. And I went to, I think, 6 different treatment centers during my life, or during my addiction. And most of I would go to these centers, like mainly in Tennessee, and a lot of them, before I'd went to the last one that I went to, the place that I work for now, a lot of them were like free places, state-run places, court-ordered places, and a lot of those centers were like Christian-based, or and they would hammer kind of one way or the highway type of mentality into you. read the Bible, go to AA meetings. There was no real like mental health aspect to it. There was no, and I'm not dogging any of those type of places. Whatever works for you, right? And the cold reality of it is, and there could be a whole nother show just on this alone, is that, this country does not provide adequate um places and adequate funding for people who need treatment, who have the disease of addiction. And it is a disease. I mean, it it becomes a disease when it gets to a certain point. The chemical makeup in the brain changes, because of addiction, and it becomes so obsessive and overwhelming that it's almost like a possession. But I will say that once I went to a place when I finally had health insurance, I went to a place in Florida, the place I work for called Recovery Unplugged, and they were dual diagnosis and they were all about the mental health. And it was in South Florida, and they opened my eyes to all these different like things. Buddhist recovery is thing called Dharma or smart recovery. There's all these different avenues of recovery. They were doing like all these different types of treatments at the center and stuff. And it really opened my eyes to be like, oh my God, man, like I can do this a different way. I have options. Like I can figure out what is right for me spiritually. I just don't have to be like, oh, well, I guess if I don't believe in Jesus or I don't believe in this certain God or whatever else, I finally found my path, and I really believe that's why I'm still sober to this day. And I truly believe that in my heart that I left it behind for good this time around. And I really think that the mental health aspect of it, like focusing on my guilt, focusing on the shame that I had because of the things that I'd done, and learning how to like get through that stuff in a healthy way, I think that's what did it for me this time around.
And for me too, it's like not trading one addiction for another. That's what a lot of those places are that seem like court ordered or something like that. They're like, okay, well, let's get you off the drugs and let's get you, on religion. And there's nothing wrong with religion and having that as an aspect to it. But it's like you can't think that just replacing that addiction with religion is going to fix it. You're right. You got to have a mental aspect to it, mental health aspect to it, to help figure out what was the cause root of that. Yeah, you need to have spiritual and religious and believe in God that to walk you through this in this moment. But if you still don't know why you're doing this, you're still going to continue to make the same mistakes over and over again. So mental health, figuring out whatever it is that was causing that, why you're doing that, and then to try to take the steps to build forward. Because you're right, trying to have that humility to understand of the things you did in the past and the humility you have with that, and all that from the past. It is a hard stepping stone to try to take that step forward, but that first step is necessary. So yeah, if there's more people around here that focus on the mental health and the mental health aspect of it, I think that'll really help a lot of people get clean and stay clean a lot longer, on the vast majority of everything, not just drugs.
Yeah, I agree, I couldn't agree more actually. And what you just said right there as well about the replacement, that's sometimes the issue with a lot of these programs is they're trying to replace the addiction with something else. And that's not necessarily how you're going to get away from it, because replacement is just, it's exactly that. It's replacing it. It's not actually fixing the problem. Um it's kind of like putting a mask over it, right? And so for myself, I mean, I just look back at my granddad. My granddad was smoking once, and he was smoking very heavily, and it was just cigarettes, things like this. And obviously, some people consider it addiction, some people don't. But the idea is that nicotine is an addictive substance. So he was smoking very heavily, and he went to the doctors one day, and the doctor was like, "Look, if you keep going this way, you're gonna die." Right, you're just going to physically die, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. And he was like, if you die, it's like, it's your grandkids, you won't be able to look after your grandkids, your kids, you won't be able to look after your kids, like all that type of stuff. And so my granddad went home that day, and the exact same day, he stopped smoking, just there and then, just chucked them all in the bin. And he had no like um um relapse. He had no like want for it. He had no need for it anymore. It just in an instant stopped it. And it was because, for me, I think a lot of it comes down to purpose as well, right? when you don't give somebody a purpose or direction, and you just say, hey, like this is why I think religion works for a lot of people, is because obviously it gives them that purpose and direction towards something again. But at the end of the day, people work differently, and so you need to give somebody a purpose or direction to go towards a certain goal in order to actually fix that problem, right? Because yeah, if they don't have a purpose or direction, then they're just not going to try to fix it at all.
Yeah, and see, that was something for me too, because like I would be able to quit a lot of things cold turkey. So that's where I was having understand a hard time understanding and having empathy for people that was like having a tough time quitting things. Because like you just like, all right, if I need to quit it, done. Smoking, quit it, done. Don't need no more cigarettes, this and that. Which I still go back here here and there, might smoke a month or two. But like when I say I quit, I don't gotta face nothing off. I'm just done buying them, and then I'm gone. I'm not smoking for like 9 to 13, 14 months. Usually 4th of July gets me, but I figured that out too, and it's so small though. But because pop's one of my biggest things for me. Like I drink too much pop constantly, and I can't quit it. But when I do quit it, I don't actually quit that addiction and beat it. I supplement it because I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go to the gym now, and when I'm in the gym, I can't drink pop, right? Because that's gonna be worse. I'm gonna feel like ass in the gym, so I gotta drink water now. So then I was like, okay, that's what it is. When you can't figure out why this is, a lot of people just replace it with another addiction thinking that they beat it, but really now you just move that energy into another addiction that might or might not be healthy.
Yeah, it's a wild thing, man. And there's like we were talking about it before the show, like there's so many different addictions out there. I mean, there's hell, I mean now there's cell phone addictions, people are addicted to social media and all that type of stuff. I think we probably all have a little bit of that. It's at some point, I don't know. But I know for me, you were talking about a purpose, Niles, like having a purpose. And I know for me, there was a time, and my father died when I was like 23, and that really hit me hard. And he died from lung cancer from smoking. Um, but for a long time there, I didn't feel like I had a purpose. I hadn't like been to school after high school or anything like that. I was just kind of working jobs here and there. I finally went to an audio engineering school, but my addiction hit off like maybe a year after I'd got out of that, and it kind of ruined some opportunities that I could have had, um and I always tell people now, like people who come to me or people that I talk to 5 days a week on the phone with my job, cuz I'm talking to these people when they are literally at their worst. Nobody calls in the rehab who are like just want to come to rehab. They're like, "Oh, I have a little problem." You know what I mean? Like people who are calling in to go to rehab are literally at their worst. You know what I'm saying? And so I talk to these people every day, and a lot of them are really, I mean, some of them are darn near suicidal. I mean, and I tell these people, look, you have an opportunity of a lifetime right now. Like I don't think you realize how much, especially the first timers, like how much this can literally change your entire life. Every aspect of your life can be literally changed, and it will happen sooner than you think it will. People who go into treatment, a lot of times they think, "Oh my God, it's going to take years." No, man, you can start gaining this stuff back within months. And I've seen people I one of my best friends in this world is 24 years old. He's coming up on 5 years too. He got clean when he was 19, and dude is killing it. He's working on his master's right now at the University of Texas. I mean, um, and it's all because he got off drugs. And it doesn't matter how you do it, treatment, whatever else. But it really is an amazing opportunity. And the sad part is some people never get that opportunity, because they don't have good enough insurance, or they don't have this, or they don't get to go to the right center, or they have to go to some, hole in the wall somewhere or something else. But, um, and some people just don't make the decision to do it. And, people are dying every day out there. The fentanyl thing is an epidemic. I mean, it's in America, and definitely in America. I'm sure it is all over the world. So that's one thing that's kind of scary and not talked about enough.
Yeah. So when was that moment for you that was that defining moment that you knew what your purpose was when everything kind of clicked for you? Was it before rehab? Was it during, or was it after you got clean? When did that moment of clarity of figuring out what your purpose was hit?
I think it's kind of a two-parter thing. I'll make it quick, but the first moment was before I had jetted to Florida. I went to South Florida. I was with my ex-wife at the time, and she kind of gave me an ultimatum, like, I'll give you 3 months to come down, because her family lived down there and she had been wanting to move to South Florida. And of course I took like 4 months or something. And um so I went down there, and I just had this moment of clarity like the first day I was down there. And I went down there on my birthday. February 8th is my actual birthday. And we went to SeaWorld for my birthday. And I remember I was I had 1 day of drugs left at SeaWorld. Like, this is how messed up I was. I had brought drugs on the plane with me, and like I said, I've been in trouble before. Like, if I would have got caught with drugs on the plane, good God, man. And so I had 1 day left on February 8th, my birthday, and I remember thinking, like, dude, I'm gonna be sick as a dog tomorrow. I don't know anybody here. You know what I mean? Like, what am I gonna do? So I just went to treatment. When I got into treatment, I was about a week in. I was still detoxing. Um, and they took us to this writers' night in Fort Lauderdale, this open mic night. And there was a guy at the housing we stayed at. There was this guy named Carl Schmidt. He just happens to be like a really awesome kind of world-renowned violin player that had got clean through that place, and he worked there. So he would come over in the mornings to where our housing was, because he lived near it. And I would talk to him every day, and he would drink coffee with me, and we just hit it off. And he's like, "Hey, there's this writers' night they're going to take the center to." And I'm like, "What?" And what rehab does that? So they take us to this writers' night, and he's like, "Do you want to play tonight?" And I was like, "Sure, I'm still detoxing, man. Like, I'm still going through it." And I wrote this song the night before. I actually posted it on my personal YouTube channel a couple weeks ago, the actual video of it. And I played this song that I wrote, and it's kind of a sing-along type of song. And there was like 200 people in there, and the whole freaking place sung the chorus of the song. Out of all the shows that I played before in my musical life with my band and everything, nobody had ever done that anywhere. And it was so deafening, them singing it. And I remember, even if you watch the video, you go back and watch the video, you could see kind of the moment of transformation in my face. And I was smiling, and I remember having that moment on stage where I was like, this is it. Like, this is fucking it for me. Like, this is what I'm supposed to do. And it wasn't like music was what I was supposed to do or something like that. It was just like, what I'm supposed to do is help others, man. Like, I'm supposed to help others, because with that song, I felt like I was helping others that night, because the wording of the song and everything. And I just remember being like, this is it, the writing on the wall, the aha moment, the moment where you're like, it's literally, and I titled the video, "This is the moment my entire life changed," because it was. And ever since then, man, I didn't look back, dude. And even through COVID, when a lot of people relapsed and didn't make it, like I stood strong, man. I got a really good job before I got the job I got now, and made some good money. And we were able to get an apartment and cars and all that stuff. And, um, gained everything back probably tenfold within like 2 years. And I recently went through a divorce about a year and a half ago, and that was really tough to deal with. It was kind of the first thing that I had to deal with other than COVID, where something really hit me hard while being clean. Um, and she did some things that were pretty vile and bad. And but you know what, man, I just let it go, dude. I weathered the storm, moved back to Tennessee, and um, things have been good ever since. Really, ever since then, ever since I went into treatment, man. Like I can't really complain. I had to deal with a past legal issue that I had done in 2018 while I was sober that hit me about 2 years in. I didn't even know I had a legal issue and um that popped up, and so I dealt with that and got through that, and they kind of slapped me on the wrist just because I was doing good. I was doing what I was supposed to be doing, and they were I've never heard a judge in court say, "I'm proud of you." It was the weirdest thing. It was always like, "Well, how much jail time can we get? Like, how much probation can we give you?" Like but it was a product of sobriety, man. It was a product of treating people good and not being a fucking asshole to people. You know what I mean? Um, and I don't know, man. I'm grateful every day for where I'm at.
Yeah, absolutely. Gratitude is a key thing. And, being proud of yourself and also building systems that essentially lead you to a position where when bad things happen, you can continue going forward is such an important thing because we see that a lot with everything really that people do these days, that nobody has a system to help them through the bad days. A lot of people they have a bad day and they kind of just curl up and they don't know what to do with themselves. It's because they never built up a system in the background. They never they never thought about it that way, and it's amazing to see though somebody like yourself can go through such tough times and yet say be strong about it and be like, you know what, I'm not even going to go back to addiction. I'm not going to go back to any of these things that I was previously doing just because of a few bad days. I'm going to keep going, and stay strong.
Yeah, and it's like it's kind of to that point too, like we've said on here, is routine, right? You got to treat your good days like your bad days. So even in those moments, you just got to get to a point where every day has its routine, a set schedule of what you're doing, how you're going to accomplish that, what goals you have, short term goals, long term goals, how you're going to accomplish those goals, what are you going to put into action. So it's just having that routine. I think that's why like that mental health aspect helps because you know why you went to that addiction in the first place, right? So then you can set up a routine that puts you in a place where you're not going back to that addiction or to those habits. So, I mean, was setting a routine, helpful for you in those moments, Rossi?
100%, man. I mean, that routine was definitely one of the main things. And early on, I went to a lot of meetings. I had a therapist that I worked with once a week. Um, and, one of the things that I had kind of found out that I had never worked on before was like guilt. Um, and I realized even like 9 months to a year in of being clean, I had this crippling guilt that I couldn't get over of just things that I'd done to my family in the past, stealing from my family, stealing from I used to work for my grandfather, I'd steal from his business and um forging checks from my grandfather's business and all this type of stuff. And my grandfather's somebody that was super dear to me, and that man, it could be 3 in the morning and he wouldn't shut his door to me, and it was just stuff like that I really, once I finally worked on that and the routine of like doing meetings, doing therapy, and all that stuff. Even down to like Leonard, down to like the basic routine of getting up and doing certain things. You know what I mean? If it's making your bed, if it's the rudimentary things of life that typically you would take for granted. I was really like stringent upon those things. There was a group that I went to every Thursday night called Dharma. It was like this Buddhist recovery type of thing. And I would go to it every Thursday night. So it's um I think doing those things, and my recovery's evolved too when it comes to routine, like it's not as much meetings anymore as it is like with my work, like I work in recovery. So that's part of my routine now. That's part of my recovery routine now, and it helps me tremendously. Working in recovery can be a hindrance to some people. I've seen people go out and relapse and can't handle it. But for me, it hasn't been that way. It's been more of a blessing, um, and part of that routine as well.
Hmm. It's about building positive habits, right? We look at books like Atomic Habits by James Clear. Something that he mentions a lot is, for some people, addiction is just a habitual thing because they've done it for so long. They continue to do it without even processing, the why. And usually it's because it's just a habitual thing for them because they're so used to this habit inside of their brain where they, this thing happens, then they go and do this, and then they go and do that. And so some addictions can be habitual as well, and that's why I think it's important to build up a solid routine, but also tear down the old ones sometimes. Changing the environment, moving to somewhere new. I think that can also be an important factor to it, right?
I think a lot of that comes with sobriety, like healthy sobriety, or there's a lot of people out there who will get clean, but they never do anything I mean, I know people who have been 2 years clean and you wouldn't even really know it. Just they're still the same person. The drugs left them, but they're still the same person in a way. They're still whatever.
Same mannerisms, same actions.
Right. And they call it a dry drunk. They call it, that type of thing. And that's where you gotta keep up the working on yourself part and doing things and take advantage of every resource that you have. Um, and when when you self-reflect and you really change, like you really change your core and everything, I believe most people have that self-awareness to see like, oh shit, like I am slipping back in the old habits, or I am like starting to slip into maybe cravings again or certain things again. And I think that, like we've talked about, dude, like mental health is such a huge aspect of it. And I think that part of it is the main part of like that teaches you how to recognize those behaviors that are going to lead you back to the bad behaviors.
Yeah, yeah. I also look at me and Len have had a couple of conversations about this in the past about basically, fathers of today. A lot of fathers of today don't, kind of a aspect of mental health is discipline, right? Is basically you feel a certain way, and despite the fact you're feeling that way, you act differently anyway. So let's say I wake up one day and I feel as though I want to, have a drink and just don't not do anything today and blah blah blah, that type of mentality. But because I have discipline, I'll wake up and be like, I'm not going to chase those feelings. I'm just simply going to do what I have to do despite the fact I don't want to. And I act that way because I've been very fortunate to have a dad who kind of instilled that discipline in me. But we see a lot of young men today who don't have a dad like that, and that's why, you've got these men who are addicted to women, all this type of stuff. And then obviously you've got men who are addicted to other things like drugs and alcohol and things like this. So I think an aspect of it as well can be kind of like a lack of fatherhood. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Yeah, no, I definitely would. I often think, and I'm real careful not to necessarily like blame my father's death, like, okay, that's why I became a drug addict or whatever, but it was something that happened, you know what I mean? It was a traumatic event that happened. And I often think back like, hey, I wonder if he would have been alive, would I have gone down the road that I went down? Would I have, and if I would have went down that road, would I have like became a full-blown addict, you know what I mean? Or would I have just been like an everyday, or not an everyday, but like a regular type of person who could, um drink a beer or whatever else. Alcohol was never my big thing, but who could party here and there and then leave it behind and not do it for 6 months. And
Moderate.
moderation, yeah. And which I was terrible at moderation, but but yeah, I do. I think on that, like, because my father was a great father, man. I mean, he really was a good dad. But at the same token, I had my grandfather in my life too, and I think a lot of the guilt came from me not taking advantage of his wise counsel either, because there were so many times where that man said there's so many things that man said to me that I think about now to this day, where I'm like, golly, man, why didn't I listen? Why was I so damn hard headed and not take advantage of what the old codger was saying? You know what I mean? Because he was right. He was right. Um, and he'd be smiling right now if he'd heard me say that. But yeah, man, it is a major part of it for sure.
Yeah, because I know that like, and it's hard too, because and me and Niles has talked about this on and off camera too, because you try to lead as a father when you're in a father figure in a role model situation too, but then sometimes, 'cause like you said, kids don't want to listen. Kids think they might know better, and then that shit clicks later. Then you look back on it, it's like, man, why didn't I listen? Why did I? So like, I think we've all had that moment. I know I've definitely have several times, and now me having kids, trying to teach them that method, and hear it, seeing them not wanting to listen to back in return, it's like, but it's like, why is that something that's just instinctively in us when we're younger, to just like not want to listen to our parents, or is that something that is built up because we haven't truly trusted in what the advice our parents have given us, because sometimes we're too guarded as children to not see what our parents are doing for us, so then we don't trust their advice because we don't think they've ever went through anything.
I don't know, man. That's a good question. That's definitely a good question. I remember when I was a kid, when I was like 6 years old, my dad used to keep a lot of cash on him. Like, he was kind of old school in that aspect. Like, he always had cash. Like, um, he'd have it hidden under the couch and stuff, like put away and stuff. And I remember he had a wallet, and it had a bunch of cash in it. He had one of those kind of like those long wallets that just like two sides kind of flip like that. And so you could see the cash,
Yeah, my dad
right?
has the same ones, bro.
Yeah, that old man wallet, you know what I'm saying, the old school wallet, and you could see the cash sticking out of it. And I remember one day, and for whatever reason, here I am, like six. I was probably maybe 7 or 8, and I remember taking $1 out of it and not asking him. And I went down to the store and I bought some candy. And I remember, feeling really guilty about it, but I never told on myself. And I did it a couple more times after that, and I got away with it. You know what I mean? He never, until he caught me, you know what I mean? But so when I think back on myself, I'm like, dang, was there something inherently wrong with me at that age? Or was I just being a kid? Was I already building the building blocks for addiction then? Or was it just a matter of me being a kid and making a mistake? Um, and I think back on stuff like that sometimes, and I've talked to therapists about it before, and things like that. And there's so many levels to this stuff, and it's unreal, and um it's unreal as far as how deep this type of stuff can go.
And I think a lot of people in the modern age, they try to live kind of like that, where a lot of people, because I used to do it myself. I think everybody has done it probably at some point, which is basically pushing the boundaries, right? Seeing how far we can push it before we actually get caught or get told off about something. And in the modern age, I think because we restrict, especially from a parenting standpoint, we restrict the amount of time that parents get to spend with their kids because both parents have to work. You've got the teachers in schools are the ones who are disciplining them instead, but now teachers can't do certain things. Parents aren't even allowed to do certain things anymore. The things that are being taught are also changing. There's less and less lessons in the modern age on discipline, especially as younger people. And this is why I think we've got so many young guys who get involved in this type of stuff or go down a dark path like this. It's because, like you said yourself, it almost sets up in a way. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but it feels as though it sets it up in a way where it's like, okay, this is going to be like kind of a building block to potential addictions in the future, because we're not being told that not to do something at a young age, and so I 100% I get that, like why you would think about that sometimes, because I think in the modern age, I think that's something that actually happens. I think a lot of people just don't get disciplined when they're younger for doing bad things, and because of that they end up growing up and doing even worse things.
Yeah, because exactly, because I don't think it's like, oh, like you think it was I just a bad kid and programmed that way. No, I think we're all as humans, and we've said this many times on this show too. Is we're programmed as opportunistics. So whatever I can get away with, whatever I can do, I am going to do if the opportunity allows me to do so. And I think that's what early childhood is that you don't know what's right and wrong. That's where parenting comes into hand. I think that's where some stern parenting really comes into hand too, because it sets up to show you the narrative of how the world is. You don't know now, but not knowing is not an excuse for you to do something wrong in the adult world. So as a parent, I got to sit there and let you know that what you're doing is wrong. I got to catch you. Start setting those boundaries. Start showing you that there are repercussions for your action, because a dollar from a wallet as a kid leads into whatever it might be as an adult, because we think that we can get those boundaries and pushed away because our parents have told us that, yeah, there's boundaries and there's rules, but you can break them or you can step over them. You know what I'm saying? So I think that does definitely start around parenting and how you parent your children, how they're going to develop later and as an adult.
Yeah. So the big thing for me when it comes down to parenting and things like this, because I just want to touch one more base on this topic, is essentially that we're almost as well not taught how to be parents to people, right? Like we, I'm noticing this a little bit more now on a very deep level, which is that there's like these little classes and stuff that some people run to help parents and understand and learn, but again, parents have less and less time these days because of the amount of work that parents have to put into jobs, etc., to just make ends meet. And so it's kind of like, not to get too deep into it, but it's kind of like the family unit gets destroyed by the modern age, because you know families are just, less and less time is being spent with each other, and more rules are being put in place for parents and for kids and things like this, where it's like we can't, discipline them the same, we can't teach them the same stuff, and we're spending less time with them. And then overall, this just kind of leads, like I said, down that dark path. Um, and it's in the sense of, like, as well, like I said, parents were taught by their grandparents, who were taught by their grandparents, and etc., to how to teach their children, right? And so depending on what position in life your parents were previously, depends on also how your parents will teach you as a child. Because sometimes we can have parents who might have had a very easygoing life, and so they kind of don't teach you about the realities and the difficulties of the world, and vice versa. You might have had a parent who's had a very hard life, and so they never teach you that the world can be kind sometimes, right? It kind of goes both ways, but yeah, the parenting thing is definitely a huge one for me, especially with young kids just getting more and more addicted to things. And I want to go back to a point you made, Michael, about the phone addictions that we have in today's modern age. It's The reality is, phone addictions are essentially the same as all these drug addictions and things like this, is because ultimately it's people trying to get a hit, like a hit of dopamine, a hit of entertainment, and like they're so addicted to it and you take their phone away, you turn the Wi-Fi off, they don't know what to do, because yeah, it kind of comes back to that purposing, because they don't have this purpose in life, and so the moment the phone goes away, they're kind of like, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do, you know. Is that like something that you guys have ever dealt with yet around what you're doing, like people coming in who've like are like super addicted to phones and stuff?
Um, I look, I'll tell you right now, I'm addicted to YouTube. I mean, as far as I'm not really on like Instagram a lot. I am on Twitter a lot, but Twitter's not like a thing where I'll just read all day. I'll make a post, see people react. And I use it for our YouTube channel. and to get things out there and to get conversations going. But YouTube is an addiction for me for sure. Like I don't watch TV, but I'll watch YouTube. Like I'll sit there and watch hours of YouTube, different things. Watch the Titans Coliseum and stuff like that. But and I watched one of y'all shows the other day too, because I wanted to check out what you guys were doing, especially since I was coming on. But yeah, I mean, that's one thing I would say that I don't know, man. The percentage of people who you could probably classify as having an addiction to a phone, I would imagine it would be pretty staggering. I think even people who would say, "Oh, I'm not addicted to my phone," probably have some type of addiction where because if you sit there and you're on for 2 hours on some app, I mean, that's 2 hours of your day. If it's like some type of mindless app where you know what I mean, like TikTok or Instagram or Twitter, which or YouTube, and I probably use YouTube a couple hours a day, I would say. So, I would definitely say it's an addiction for me. Now, do I personally put it on a level as like my opiate addiction? No, because I'm not stealing, but I could see because I'm not an all day, everyday phone guy, but I could see where it definitely could be on the level of something um like especially for the younger generation too, where TikTok is their generation, Instagram is their generation, you know?
Yeah, and bro, Kevin Hart gets a joke about that where he's talking about his kids. I believe it's Kevin Hart, and he's like, "You take away your kid's phone, and they turn into a crack addict real quick. Like, Daddy, I get my phone. What can I do to get that phone? Daddy, Daddy, where's that phone?" And it's like that's what it is, bro. I realize you take computer, you take them Xbox and game systems away from these kids, bro. They are ready. Like, what do I got to clean dishes? Daddy, I'll vacuum the whole house. I promise I'll do laundry for a
Mhm.
week. What do I got to do? And I'm like, bro, chill out. Ain't that serious? Just go outside and play, touch grass, bro.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man. I think the thing is, it degrades people's mental health a lot, and it's kind of like this cycle almost, where essentially they don't have a purpose in life, and so they're bored, they don't know what to do, they jump on their phone, right? And then because they're on the phone, they're just scrolling mindlessly. Their mental health kind of degrades a bit because they're not going outside, they're not socializing properly, they're just on their phone all day. And because they're on the phone all day and not doing anything, like I said, their mental health degrades. Their mental health degrades, then they get involved in worse stuff, right? So then they start doing degenerate things like crazy parties, right, and all this other stuff. They go to crazy parties. They, get absolutely hammered and blackout drunk, and they start doing that on repeat. And because they got hammered and blackout drunk, they wake up the next day hungover, but like they're feeling ill. And so what are they? They're bored because now they can't do anything because they're hungover and they're smashed, and so they jump on their phone, and then the whole cycle continues.
And then they see their self on some TikTok video.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then that doesn't help as well because now they've got 5 minutes of fame, and so they're like, I don't know what to do. It's so true. It's so true. So yeah, it's so like difficult these days for younger people to realize that, but they need to realize it and soon, because otherwise essentially Bo Burnham said this, and I repeat this a lot, which is that for a lot of young guys, the real world isn't the real world. It's the world inside of their phone is the real world. Everything else outside of their phone is just a simulation. It's not real.
Yeah, bro. Like it's like when you go and you sitting there and you're liking the girl's Instagram page, this and that. Then you go meet in person, y'all start dating a little bit. Then you see her without the makeup. It's not the same real world that you was expecting it was going to be. Like, and I think that's what, like, even with my kids, what they see on the internet is actually what it is in everyday life and who somebody is. And I don't think they've realized at that point that they are selecting what part of their life they want you to see, and they're only selecting the best parts for you to see because they don't want you to see their lows. David Goggins says this, everybody's competing, right? And everybody's life is fucked up, and everybody is fucking up, but some people just hide that shit way better than others do. And that's why I can't get them to understand that social media has helped people trial and error how to cover up all that shit of how they're taking care of their life a lot more. And so, yeah, kids nowadays think that just because they see it on the internet and they see somebody go do these pranks or act these ways that they can go act that same way. And it's like, it's not even real.
And that's not even taking into account the what social media does to, like, as far as like the bullying part of it. And there's school shootings that have happened because of people being bullied on social media. um all that type of stuff that goes into that aspect of it. Like you said, they're seeing things on social media like, oh, I want to be like that, or I want to look like that person. um and then they're getting bullied because of it and all that stuff. And that's a whole nother, again, that could be a show in itself of that type of thing as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's still a new thing. The internet as a whole, social media, this whole kind of lifestyle is still really a new thing. It's just been picked up so fast that people haven't really understood how to manage it yet, right? How to manage their emotions with it, how to understand it, because I think it was Mike Tyson who said, social media made a lot of people comfortable with saying things that they like wouldn't say to somebody's face, right? So there's that aspect of it as well, and people don't realize that, like, oh, like this person said this to me on social media, and like you say, some people get very emotional to the point where they go commit crimes and do really bad things, and it's like you don't realize that like that person is probably some scrawny kid on a keyboard, just like bored out of their mind and just wanted to get a reaction essentially. um and so it's crazy because, like I said, people don't know how to manage that yet really. It's still a new thing. It's still a new thing.
Yeah, and it's going to take time for all that regulation and understanding of what it actually takes toll on the human mind and all that stuff, bro. 'Cause social media, like you said, we said on here many times, if you use it right, it can be a tool to help you and grow and reach people that are like you and get better. But if you don't use it properly, it definitely can be detriment to you and your mental health.
I wanted to go back to a point that you made about the YouTube thing. You were saying that you like to kind of watch YouTube videos for a long time and things like that. And I'm kind of the same. Like I watch YouTube, I don't watch TV and stuff. And yeah, I would almost like put myself in a position where it's like, again, I wouldn't say it's like an addiction as such. By classification, it's something that I enjoy doing, and it's also what call a productive vice. So there's something I want to ask you about kind of vices in general. So I kind of put addiction to the side of like really heavily, like it's kind of ruining your life. You can't get away from it, or you're struggling to get away from it. Sorry, and you need to like make a drastic change to get away, to fix it. And I class a vice as something which is like you enjoy doing it because it's whatever you enjoy doing it, but at the same time you understand the level of control that you need with it, right? And I wanted to ask you, do you believe that productive vices are a thing? Because I think personally, we all need a break at some point, right? We all need something where we can outlet our emotions, our feelings into something, whether it's art, whether it's, driving around, whether it's uh like I say, watching YouTube videos, that kind of thing. Do you think like a vice that is just healthy is a good thing, that helps you?
Most definitely, man. I mean, like, there's a couple healthy vices I have. I'd say one of it is creating content. I mean, it's something that I do spend a lot of time doing, making graphics, promoting it um on social media. And but making videos, thinking of ideas to make videos, collaborating with other creators. I've collaborated on our Titans podcast with Leonard and his thing, the Coliseum, a few times. And doing all that type of stuff is, for me, it's so much fun. And I think it's definitely a healthy thing. And it's something that keeps my keeps me active. It keeps me mentally active. And then it's also a community. There's a community aspect to it where, like, I've met so many amazing people through doing just YouTube for the Titans alone that it's incredible. I mean, I've made um lifelong friends. I mean, I met Leonard through it. I met, well, really, you too, Niles, through it, because through Leonard, I met you. So it's definitely a thing that has been a massively positive thing in my life ever since I started it, like 2.5, 3 years ago. Um, And like when I was in South Florida, I guess I started my own channel like 3 years ago before we had started our network. But then I didn't have many friends, you know. I had friends in recovery and stuff like that, but I was new there still, you know, and I didn't have a lot of friends. And so when I started that, I met all these people around South Florida that were like Titans fans that I didn't even know there were Titans fans down there. And I met them and kind of connected with them and become really good friends with a lot of really good people that are good for my mental health and my mental well-being. And um now I do think that, you know, since I've gotten clean and gotten past these bad addictions, that I've been able to make wise decisions and been able to choose wisely who I should be around, who I should associate with, because there's a lot of people where I don't associate with through like my Twitter and stuff who I would never talk to in person. But the thing is now, like, I have the know-how and the ability to say like, okay, no, I should probably stay away from those people because that's not a healthy person for me to be around. You know, and I also realize too, like, I don't have to like everybody, and no, everybody doesn't have to like me, and I'm cool with that. You know what I mean? Like, um, I think with the social media thing too, going back to that, I know I'm bouncing around, but the social media thing too, there's a lot of people pleasing aspect to it, and that's where a lot of people fell they fall trapped to, you know, is like, I gotta people please, I gotta make myself look this certain way, especially younger people. I gotta make myself look this certain way to keep up the appearance, you know, and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, I've fallen into that trap so many times. I've in the past on my own channel, I've deleted content, you know, unreleased things, all that type of stuff, simply because I'm afraid of like, oh, like this person might judge me, and then, you know, I must admit, doing it has actually allowed me to kind of finally realize, like, oh, like if you actually look into other creators and other people on this platform, and like you were saying, some of the amazing people that you meet, you realize that kind of everybody goes through that aspect at some point, because it's like I say, social media is still a new thing. Nobody's ever managed their emotions like this before, and nobody's ever had to, because we weren't this connected before. But once you learn how to, you realize like, oh wow, it literally doesn't matter, because it's just social media. Like it's just the internet world. And truthfully, like you were saying before, Leonard, there is a lot of great things that can come out of it, and it's simply how you focus your perception. If you put your perception on all the bad comments and all the bad things people are saying, that's all your perception is going to be. You have to simply just shift your perception, because the hate's always going to be there, no matter what you do, no matter who you are. You know, Mr. Beast planted 100 wells in Africa for a video, and people were still hating on him, saying that he shouldn't be giving water to Africans, essentially, saying that it shouldn't be him, it should be governments. It's like, okay, but the governments aren't doing it, so he's done it. What, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, no matter what you do, you're always going to get hate. And, you know, it's about focusing on the positive stuff, especially on social media, and keeping that perspective of, you know, in that area.
Yeah, my brother always going to hate, and that's what I've had to learn too. Because when content creation started to come really taking off for me, and I was actually being able to make a living from it, that's what I fell trapped to. I was like, okay, I got to post this. They're gonna like this. I'm not gonna like this. Like, they not realizing that they was coming to me and liking my stuff because I was already putting out the narrative of who I was, and that's what was gravitating to them. And then I start going to it to try to be what they like. Who's gonna like this? And like, nah, I have to revert back to being me. Post what I like. Post things that are relatable to me, and realizing, and a lot of my followers don't see this too. They think everything that I post is everything that I'm going through. Not sometimes I'm posting stuff to help relate and reach and touch out to other people as well. So sometimes people reach out to me, sorry, so hard. It's like, I'm okay. I'm trying to reach out and help other people too. You know what I'm saying? So that is a big thing. So everybody thinks everything that they see on social media is exactly that. Because, and some people, like when we say use it as a tool, I'll give a good example of it too. It's like a lot of people just go out to social media and just start venting out what their problem is. I'm going through this and that, nobody this and just start unloading. everybody already got too much stress. They're already going to screw us past that. That's not how they're going to see it. That's not how you get that attention, right? But if you put out something that's like a quote or something that is inspirational or something that is evolved around like a proverbs or something within those lines that people can relate to, like, man, that really resonated with me. I was going through that too. You can start seeing the people that's going with you and start building a relationship and building a community within that without, like we said, like self-sabotaging at that first is kind of unloading too much at the beginning. So you can go out there to figure out and see who are relating to some of the things that you're relating to that resonated with you when you see it. And you can start to see the people that are going through what you're going through and start building friendship and building a community around those people as well. And that's how you can start using social media as a tool to help you rather than thinking that it's something that is terrible, that's draining you, taking away from your time, and really not helping you progress and make yourself better, and not really helping your mental health either.
Yeah, yeah, and as we know, bad mental health leads to it can lead to some very dark roads, you know. And kind of I wanted to touch on one kind of final point here then, which is that um let's say somebody's out there right now, they're battling with addiction, but they want to move away from it. They've already made the conscious decision themselves to actually help themselves. What are some of the steps that they can take um to kind of basically, start fixing themselves? What are some of the people they can contact, all that type of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of numbers out there online and stuff like that, and you got to watch out for that too, because we get that every day where I work, where people are, they'll throw a 1-800 number out there, and it'll, lead you to somewhere where it's not even the right help or the right place. But I know, just looking up online. I mean, even there's so many avenues of help too nowadays too. Like there really is, and if you really want it, I feel like most people can find it. Now the issue is too with there's not a lot of great places um that won't take you in if you don't have certain insurances and stuff like that. But there are resources out there. One of them, there is a really good resource out there, findtreatment.gov. We tell people all the time at work, you can actually search your zip code, um, you could put if you have insurance or you don't have insurance, so you can weed out those places already that can't accept you right off the bat. You can put and see if places have scholarships. It's a really good resource. It's run by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration in America, but so findtreatment.gov. And also, I always tell people this, and even on our Titan show, I put a ticker at the bottom at least 2 or 3 times a show. And I give them my Twitter at Titans Rossi. Like if anybody's watching this or watches this show and they need help, please feel free to my DMs, or my DM thing's always open if you follow me or don't follow me. But at Titans Rossi, man, if you got something or you're dealing with something, I promise I will do my best to find you help. Whether it's through our center or at least give you a resource where it is a good resource, that they're not just going to give you the runaround, that they're actually going to try and help you. And y'all can put it in the description of the video and all that too if you'd like. But yeah, you know, I have no issue helping somebody out.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, so I want to kind of leave it on one final note on my side, which is that, if you're battling something like this, and we're talking about addiction, not just on like a heavy level, we're talking on a light level as well. We're talking, if you're addicted to gambling to some degree, if you're addicted to your phone every day, if you're addicted to any of these things, then just keep in mind that you have to make the conscious decision to truly help yourself. You've got to. That's the first most important step, I think, is sitting there and making the conscious decision that, what, I don't want to keep living a life like this. Especially if you're somebody in your 20s, in your 30s, and even in your 40s, you want to be sitting there looking and thinking, what, I still have 30, 40, 50, good years of my life left. Let me spend these last years of my life better than how I spent the first half of my life, and make the conscious decision to improve yourself, to help yourself, And then I promise you, I can promise you, once you've made that decision and then you reach out to other people to help, those people will be more than able to help you because you're already willing to help yourself. So that's another really important aspect.
Yeah, it's that point of it. It's not how you start; it's how you finish, right? It's your life, it's your story. At any point in time, you can stop in that chapter and start changing your story at any point in time. It's never too late. You're never too old. You can always make it happen. So it's not how you start; it's how you finish. And if you're tired of the chapter of your life that you're in, you are the author of your own life and your own story. So you can at any point change what the narrative of your story is going to be.
Facts, absolute facts. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, Michael. We really, really appreciate you coming on, and this has been an awesome podcast. Leonard, I shall speak to you again very soon. And you guys at home, be sure to comment below what you gained from this, and follow Michael over on Twitter at Titans Rossi. We'll put the link in the description. Peace out.